Hiya, Kylie here, an incoming student at MIT who is accepted into Harvard, Stanford, MIT, and Caltech. I'm here at the College of Southern Idaho, its beautiful campus, to tell you about the college application process for somebody like me. Let's get started. So the journey starts high school, right? You plan all these things to do, at least I did, plan all these things to do that you would put on your college application that would make it better. That was the whole idea. And so as you go through your high school years, freshman, sophomore, junior, all of a sudden you come upon your senior year and now you have to fill out your applications. That's kind of a heavy burden. It was kind of a big pressure. And so I'm hoping this video will provide some information that will help lessen that pressure for you. So first of all, let's start off with the application itself. So there are nowadays really easy websites that you can use to send your application to lots of different colleges. For example, there is the Common App, which is what I used, but there are other ones too that have multiple colleges in them. So let's just start with the Common App. So the colleges on the Common App include like the Ivy League schools and some state schools like UMass, things like that. University of Massachusetts, that's what that is. And so that's what I used to apply to all the Ivy League schools that I did, like Harvard, Stanford, well, Stanford's not Ivy League, but like Princeton, UPenn, things like that. And so the Common App is basically a website that you have your basic application on, and then the different colleges can put separate questions that you can answer for each college. So your basic application has your basic information, and it also has this really long essay you have to write. Well, it's not really long, it's just long in comparison to all the other questions that you're going to have to answer for the different colleges. And so, yeah, besides that, it has like your family background and things like that. And so it's really easy because you only have to fill that out once instead of like every single time you apply to a college, because nowadays people apply to like 10, 12 different colleges. And so that really helps kind of combine everything together. And so that's the Common App, but you have to be careful for things like combining application websites like the Common App, because they don't include every single college. So for example, all of the University of California colleges aren't on there, MIT isn't on there, and there are some other colleges that aren't on there, some certain state schools. So you'll want to be careful and make sure you look up on the Common App's website if the colleges you're interested are on that website, because yeah, like I said before, I know the UCs have their own application page where you have to apply specifically to each different UC, like UC Berkeley, UCLA, those things. I got accepted into UC Berkeley and UCLA, but those are the only two I applied to. So yeah, and also MIT has their own separate one, like I said before. Theirs is pretty different from the other applications, but I'll go into that later sometime. So yeah. Okay, so now that we're done with applications, let's talk about dates. There are two important dates that you have to remember regarding your application. And there's one in the fall, and then there's one in the spring. And so the first one in the fall, or spring/winter, excuse me. So the one in the fall is November 1st. And that is pretty much the Ivy League deadline date, sort of, around there. So, certain colleges will have it at certain dates, but around November 1st is when you should be shooting for your early applications. And if you're not sure what early applications are, you can watch another video that I have on early versus late applications, regular, all that kind of jargon about college applications. And so around November 1st though, remember that, and make sure you check with the colleges you're applying to see when their early application dates are. And I think Common App actually will say if you use Common App, when the specific colleges on the Common App have their deadlines. So that's good, you can use that. And so the second date that you should remember is February 1st. So around February 1st is the regular application deadline. So don't quote me, it's not all colleges have February 1st. That's generally the date that colleges set for their regular applications. And so this is set so that they can give all of their responses back by March-ish. Yeah, March-ish. And so shoot for that February 1st deadline. Like I said, for November 1st, don't quote me, it's like sort of ish around there. Make sure you check with the colleges specifically that you're applying to see when exactly their deadlines are, especially if they're not on a website like Common App that actually says it for you. So make sure you check so that you don't miss those deadlines, because they are hard deadlines. Okay? Nice. Okay, so now that I've given some basic info, let's get back into my personal story, since maybe that's what some of you guys came here to hear. Okay, so in the fall, I knew that I wanted to apply to MIT and Caltech early, because even though they weren't like an early decision or restricted early decision, they're just normal early action, I knew that I really, really wanted to go to MIT. That was my top choice by far. Like, it was just way up there. So because MIT was early action, I could apply to basically any other school that was early action, and Caltech happened to be early action, and so I applied to Caltech too. And so I applied by November 1st, which is that deadline that I mentioned earlier. I don't remember exactly when I applied, but I applied before then. And I used the Common App for Caltech, and I just used the normal MIT application website for MIT. They give you like an application ID and stuff, and it's like all different. And so I remember thinking, what should I write about for my essays? And so for me, I wanted to kind of focus on how I liked astronomy and astrophysics, but I also wanted to bring in my artsy writing side, because I really, really like to write. And so the perfect essay for my Common App, I combined them in a very clever way. So I had written a science fiction novel that you can actually go purchase on Amazon as an ebook. I published it as an ebook, and it's sci-fi. It has elements of astrophysics in it. And so my whole Common App essay was focusing on how I like to write and I like astrophysics, and this novel that I wrote kind of combined the two interests, so that, well, it's kind of like a culmination of all my most passionate interests. Okay, so after I applied early action to MIT and Caltech, now comes the waiting time. And that waiting time was very, very tense for me. And Caltech's decision actually comes out before MIT's. I think they do that purposefully. And so when I got into Caltech early, so that was a huge surprise, because none of my family expected me to, because Caltech is a place for the hardcore STEM people. And I don't have like 1,000,005 on STEM APs, and I don't have any of those science Olympiad, international Olympiad scores, and all those crazy tests and stuff like that. And so it was kind of surprising that I got accepted into Caltech early, but I did, and so that was sort of a positive, optimistic boost in my college application timeline, I guess. I don't know how to say it. And so yeah, so I got into Caltech, and then I also got into MIT early, and after Caltech, my family was kind of expecting me to get into MIT, so it wasn't that big of a surprise, but it was still a really nice thing for me, because MIT was my top school by far, like I said before, so it was really nice to get into my dream school. And so from there on, now it was just like hardcore apply to basically all the other colleges that I wanted to apply to. So like, I didn't accept MIT's offer right then and there, because I wanted to see what other schools I would get into, and then consider that first. And so I applied to all the regular ones in like the December, sort of January timeline and things like that. But it was kind of difficult at the time, because I was also working on my astrophysics research for STS, the Science Talent Search. And so there was that going on. I had to write like a research paper and all that kind of stuff. So I was very, very busy my fall, winter of my senior year. And so after I turned in all the applications, my parents were very strict, by the way. They wanted to review like literally everything about every single application that I had. It was crazy. And so, yeah, I turned in the regular applications, and then the waiting period for the regular applications is actually much longer than the waiting period for the early. And so, but because I'd gotten into MIT, I was completely relaxed. Like, I didn't worry about anything. And so even when I was called in for interviews and things like that for the Ivies, I would be pretty relaxed and optimistic, like my normal self, instead of stressed out and like, oh, what's gonna happen sort of thing. And so a lot of them actually said like, how are you so relaxed, things like that. So it was actually kind of funny talking about that. And I didn't mention I got into MIT because that would be bad. Normal interview etiquette. Yeah, and I might actually go over my interviews in a separate video, but for now let's continue. So I turned in the regular applications, and then now the time comes, and there's like one day, I forget what day it is, that all of the Ivies release all their decisions, like same day. And so I went through each of the emails and I opened up the decisions for each of the Ivies that I applied to. And so I think I saved Harvard for last because, you know, Harvard's like the big Ivy. And so I kept finding out that I was like rejected, or waitlisted. And so I got rejected / waitlisted for everything except for Harvard and Stanford, which I'm including now, but Stanford isn't really an Ivy, it's just like I'm including it because you know the whole acronym HYPSMC, whatever. And so, yeah, so I got into Harvard and Stanford, but all the other Ivies waitlisted / rejected me, and my family thinks it's because they already knew that I got into Harvard, but I don't know if they communicate like that. Maybe that's kind of suspicious, you know. So that's how it goes. And then so from there on, they have these things called campus preview weekends. At least that's what MIT calls theirs, campus preview weekend, where you can go and you can check out the campus for a weekend, and they have all these events and you stay with a student and all this crazy stuff. And so because my parents knew that I was so dead set on MIT, they only sent me to the MIT one, which I really regret. I wish I could have gone to like the Harvard one and the Stanford one and things like that, but sadly I did not. I only went to the MIT one. And so the MIT one was very exciting. I will also do another video on that. But yeah, so that was kind of set me at MIT. And so like I accepted them, and now I'm going to MIT. So that was kind of my story about my college application process. And so if you have any specific questions for me about my story or about the college application process in general, I would be happy to answer them for you. So put them in the comments or contact me some other way. Put some ways in the description for you if you would like. And so I'll see you next time. Bye bye.